Hey, this is Brian Jones from Valhalla Academy for Kentucky, and I'm here with Sean McClure. Sean McClure has been the MMA scene in Kentucky as long as there's been an MMA scene, and even before that. He's a ring announcer, he's a writer for BJPen.com, he's a family man, an IT guru, wears a lot of different hats. He's a magician too, so he may disappear at any moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
It could be wild. You guys might want to keep watching.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep watching. So, what I want to do is just ask him some questions about the grassroots MMA scene in Kentucky. So, he knows about the top levels of MMA. He's got his sort of finger on the pulse of the Kentucky MMA scene. So, we're just going to get some information from him about the history of MMA, where it's going, and what he thinks about it.
Let's do this.
Let's do this. So, how did you get involved in MMA and all this stuff, jiu-jitsu, everything?
Well, it started like it was. We had talked before, you know, when we first met. For those of you who don't know me, I was a 3rd degree in Taekwondo. Thought I was the greatest thing ever because, you know, hey, Taekwondo, it's Chuck Norris. So anyway, I started writing for Bruce Buffer's Max Fighting, and I met Rich Franklin, and that changed my life. Now, my instructor at the time, Eric Mobley, knew Mike O'Donnell, right? I mean. And Mike O'Donnell, we're going to give a shout out later, but you're the man. But Eric Mobley is a phenomenal martial artist. I mean, he and I sort of had a falling out, but I mean, he still is one of the best I've ever seen. So he showed us the basics. Like, we learned Taekwondo, and then in a separate class, he was Krav Maga certified. He'd come in and show us this cool stuff. So anyway, I went up to, met George Grishow. And George is a lot like Brian. If you've never met George, like Brian right here is sitting calmly. George sitting calmly usually means he's going to choke you out, and like the same with Brian, when this is over, I'm going to get choked out. So I met Rich, I started boxing with those guys, boxing with professional boxers, sparring with UFC guys, Joe Briggs, Marcus Davis at the time, Dustin Hazlett, I was grappling with him. I mean, it was to the point where it was almost common for me to be in there with a guy from the UFC. I was in great shape, it was a great time. And it sparked my interest. It really got me into it. And when I started meeting all these people, I was like, you know, I could really do something with this. Then Max Fighting got bought out by MixedMartialArts.com, and that was a big blow for me, man. I mean, what do I do now? So I was a ring announcer. I never trained, still trained. And then BJ Penn was looking for staff writers. I applied, and here I am.
There's some really good drives.
So, Sean writes regularly. I'm kind of featured in his Ask a Black Belt column. That
let me stop you right there. He has one of the most popular videos that we posted, and it's about no-gis and belts. If you want to go YouTube that. It's Brian Jones, no-gi.
You can't get a belt in no-gi. Just for the record. If you have one, take it off.
Okay, I have nothing to do with this. He can defend himself, I can't, so...
So you've been here and you've been doing this for a long time. You've been involved in the ring announcing. So if you've seen a show in Kentucky, you've probably heard him ring announce. So he got into announcing, and so just kind of give us a rundown of how the MMA scene has evolved since its inception to basically where we are now. Just in a brief synopsis of that.
Okay, I'll start about the time you were fighting.
Okay.
And Ryan had a nickname I can't say because he wants to get rid of it, but it's the Meat. But anyway, it was a joke, but it caught on, and that's what everybody remembers him as. When I first did one of my articles on Kentucky MMA, I was researching amateur fighters, and of course at that time Mike O'Donnell, if you were talking pro fighters, you were talking Mike O'Donnell, because he was legit and he was representing us on the national scene. We talked about Joe Jordan before. I think it was Joe Jordan.
Exactly.
He fought Jens Pulver, and you had those guys, but the amateur scene was really weird. I can't remember his last, Chandler or Sterling, lost it. Anyway, there was a guy, amateur guy at the time, who had so much experience that they were not letting people. I think Donnie Wallace was going to fight him, and they said, no, this guy's, it'd be like fighting Rich Franklin. So you had guys at that skill level, and then you had guys like Donnie who were incredible, who were just starting out, and they were coming up. There was so much of just a mismatch in experience because you had all these guys like Mike who had been doing this before it was cool. And then you had all the guys who just started and they all thought they were cool because they're taken from the guys who started way back, right? So they come up, they're like 1 and 2 or something, and then you run into that guy that comes up from Atlanta because in order to get fights, and one thing the amateur guys have today that you didn't have, we're like 72 fights in a driving range, or driving distance. You had to go down to Florida, you had to go to Atlanta, you had to come from,
Guys went to Louisiana.
Yeah.
They fought in all kinds of different states. I remember my friends fighting in all kinds of different states. So Indiana, Florida, Louisiana, Tennessee, just random places.
You couldn't just go, hey, Bluegrass Brawls in Lexington or Hard Rocks in Shepherdsville. So you had all of those. You had guys that were actually traveling. Then you had broke guys who wanted to fight, and they were like 0 and 5. They're from. There's an incredibly talented fighter named Jeremy Philpott, and he trains out of Middlesboro MMA, which is it's a vapor. It's imagine. He's so naturally gifted, but he has no school, and that's how it was back then. You had one guy who got in a bar fight. And it still happens. I'm not going to call anybody out. But it'd be like, hey man, I got in a bar fight. We saw this guy beat somebody up. And the next one he's an MMA coach.
Where do you train? Out on the street. I train on the street.
It's the streets, man. So he'd be in the corner. He's the guy. You'll know him because he's the guy in the corner. Instead of saying, like Mike O'Donnell would be like, okay, move your left leg, shift it over, put your right hand over. This is the guy who'd be like, yeah, punch it, yeah.
Get up off the ground.
Exactly.
Don't let him hold you there. Just don't lay there and hit him.
So those of you who have him as an instructor, you're lucky. But that's how it was. You had those guys that just made crap off on 49 and 0. There was no record. There were no established records back then. No blood tests. You could be fighting someone on coke back then. I don't know if you've ever fought somebody on cocaine, but it's not pleasant. When you're in the Marine Corps and you're a chaser, and you're out on the streets of Honolulu, believe me when I say there's some wild people on there. So you didn't have any regulation. You'd have a guy like you who took it seriously, fighting a guy sometimes that may not take it seriously. And it was completely unfair. And if you think about what happens, even today, you got a bunch of those young guys, and they're all competing. They're the big fish in the little pond. First time they step out, they get smashed in a real event. So let's go back to O'Donnell real quick. O'Donnell, I think he fought in Pride. I'm pretty sure he fought in Pride. I know he fought in Bellator. I know he's fought in King of the Cage. I mean, he's fought everywhere. But Mike trained before he did it. And there are people who didn't train, and they're out there now getting obliterated. They still have not learned. And but 75% of people now have a legit school. And so that's what I was getting at. You didn't have regulation or anything, and you didn't have a place to train. So when I went over to school, when I went over to Valhalla, and you see all these guys in there, and they're taking it seriously, and they're doing the right techniques, I have flashbacks when you'd go in and there'd be some fat guy there and he'd be like, okay, the short belt, right here, pulling it down, let's go guys, come on, yeah. And then you'd walk out, you'd be sweaty, bloody, but you didn't know what you learned. And it's a great experience over there, man. And I'm not just trying to sell your school. I'm telling you, 4 seasons, Valhalla, Georgetown MMA, and Louisville MMA, all legit, man.
Well, I came up in 4 seasons, and I want to give a big shout out to Mike O'Donnell. He was really a pioneer in mixed martial arts, in jiu-jitsu in general. He's he was Kentucky's first black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he was my instructor, and I owe a lot to him. So just wanted to say that. So do you think that the regulation was a good thing, that there's more regulation? Because I know that the Kentucky Boxing Wrestling Authority took over MMA and it started to be regulated, blood testing, drug testing, requirements for medical staff, things like that, which was not required before. I mean, I had a couple friends who fought in a barn at a biker rally, and one guy fought a couple of dudes out of the crowd and called them out. So I remember this. Oh, you think you can beat me? Let's get in there. And you guys want to see it? Yeah. I was like, Thunderdome.
I know, and you put the
bike,
got his biker
so yeah,
shorts
the
on.
guy's fighting in jean shorts. I don't want to fight a guy in Daisy Dukes, but I mean, that's the thing. So Sean has seen this grow. So seeing this this growth and these people, do you is there anybody right now that you would consider real up and coming that you're looking out for on the national scene coming up soon?
Yeah, I think you guys know him. Hugh Parks trains out of Georgetown MMA. Adam Gomez, incredible instructor. Has taken Hugh and sort of molded him and kept him grounded. You know, I call Adam the humble thug because he'll kill you, but he's very humble about killing you. So, but he took Hugh and he's kept him grounded. You know, I don't know if Hugh's still at Georgetown MMA. I haven't been there in a while. But in the Portland ring,
he might be at Reaction now.
Oh, Q's at Reaction?
Yeah.
Well, I would just say that Adam really helped him grow.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Rob Nickerson, I think it's John Voth. You know, John Voth is incredible. The Voth brothers, Portland Pringle is the scariest dude out there, and here's why. Portland has the ability to stay calm during a fight. Even after the fight, after the adrenaline's up and he just wins, he's very calm. And those are the guys that go far. Look at Chuck Liddell. I mean, pre-fight, he was usually like, "I'm gonna knock him out," and that was it. And then he did his little thing in the octagon when he won, and he was back to calm.
With that switch, he turned it on and off.
Exactly. Portland has a scary switch. So does Q.
Definitely.
There are so many other guys. One of my favorite fighters is Derek Bird. I mean, just unreal fighter. But really, those are the guys that immediately pop out because I've watched them from the beginning to, and no offense to any of the newer guys, like Chad Sermon. You know, Chad's a really good fighter, but I'm talking about the guys that I've watched for a long time that have fought steadily, not the ones that have fought here. You know? No offense to anyone else, those are just the guys that.
Yeah, so there's definitely a Kentucky MMA scene. People forget about the state sometimes, but you know, there's some up-and-comers from here, so look out for her.
Female fighter, Jessamine Duke. She's on The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, definitely.
She is so nice and so scary at the same time. She'll kill you.
Definitely. So, we're going to kind of wrap up with this question. Is there anything else you like, comments, stories, anything like that that kind of comes to mind that you want to talk about in terms of the Kentucky, the grassroots scene? Because, you know, a sport has to have a grassroots. It can't all be dominated by these people come from somewhere. You know, you see them on the national scene, they come from these small towns. So Kentucky is one of these places that they could come from. The next big person could come from Kentucky. So why not?
I'll tell you, let me give you my history of how I got into MMA. Right after UFC 52, I've already been training. I'm up there with the guys in Ohio, and I come back and I'm at a Jimmy Mack show, and it's at Continental Inn, and the crowd went ballistic, and it was one of the crappiest shows ever in terms of matchups, but it was incredible because the energy was great, and Jimmy knew how to put on a show. I mean, he could put two guys in there that didn't need to be in there. So we watched that. I'm sitting next to, I think it was Eric Mobley, Kevin Mobley, and John Hatton, and maybe Dion Guest. Anyway, we're sitting there, and I'm like, man, this is really cool. This is going to go somewhere. Next thing I know, I'm in the American Fight League. I'm their marketing director. I'm on the cover of Tap Out. I'm on HDNet. I'm on Spike TV. I'm at Maxim parties. And to the idiots in Louisville who thought they were competing with us because they had a similar name, you're wrong. You're wrong. You weren't even close. Sorry. It just bothers me.
That's
so
okay.
I just kept quiet.
Let it out.
Hey, I was in the room with guys, we talked before, like $5 million. Guys that own WebMD, guys that from here and there. And every single one of these guys, I'll tell you what I love. If you have money, you want more money. So be happy with what you have. Because they were so concerned, every bit of their money was tied up in something. And you had to buy in a certain portion. So these guys would be like, oh man, I don't know if I want to put that much money in because I've got that tied up over here and I got to free it up here. I would say, if I have money, it's going to be free floating. It's going to be floating in the air so I can just grab it. But these guys couldn't. And we had a lot of money from investors. And we were getting ready to launch. We had Babalu, we had Tito Ortiz, we had the list there, we had Rafael Assunção, Junior Assunção, Diego Saraiva, Douglas Lima. All these guys are names, or were names, and we had guys like Joe Ammerman who helped us build. But we had all this money come in because of mishandling by an organization. It was taken away because it wasn't legal. That's all I can say. we didn't do anything criminal. There was nothing criminal. It was just a simple procedure that was skipped, and so they had to do it all over again, and he never recovered. But the other thing I wanted to tell you that amateur fighters need to be aware of is this. If you have an organization that is loyal to you, and you're loyal to, and you stay loyal to them, you're going to grow. If you have a school, if you have a jiu-jitsu school, don't bounce around. You can cross-train, but you need to stay with the same instructor, someone who knows your strengths and weaknesses. Even if you get upset with them, even if you're going through a tough time, you need to stay with it. Because one thing I learned is these idiots who are going around from organization to organization, they're falling by the wayside because they don't have any stability. So if you're a student of jiu-jitsu, if you're someone that's been fighting, pick one or two organizations, two tops, and fight there. Because if you're champ in one, you don't want to go to the other organization and lose. You want to focus and build yourself. And in the AFL, we try to do that with Judy or with Alan and Ron Browning, Ron Sparks. We helped Ron launch. We helped Judy launch. He was on the cover. Boom, he's on the Ultimate Fighter. Ron, Ultimate Fighter. And I'm not saying we put them there, Michael Donald put them there, but we put them more in the spotlight.
That's my promise. Once I
So
have
I
people
hope that advice helps people pick an organization and stick with it. Also, shout out to the Fergusons, two of the best fighters in the state. BJ's one of my favorite fighters of all time. And that's a great Kentucky family that I forgot to mention. So, Brian, I really appreciate you. I'm sorry about rambling, but
No, it's okay.
I love MMA,
Remember,
man.
loyalty. Loyalty is important.
Without it, you have nothing, man. You're standing on ice without it.
Well, this is Brian Jones from Valhalla Academy here with Sean McClure. I appreciate the interview. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Brian.
And we'll see you next time.